Good day, everyone. I am Lorraine Ann Patilan, and for today's discussion, it is about the IP or Indigenous People communities in Mindanao. At this video, you will learn the different IP communities in Mindanao as well as their identity, customs, traditions, beliefs, and etc. Are you ready? Now let's begin. Now, the first indigenous communities in Mindanao that will be discussed is the Ata Manobo. Who are the Ata Manobo? Let's find out. Ata Manobo, also known as Ataas or Agtas. They can be found in the northern part of municipality of Capalong, Davao del Norte. Many of them, however, identify themselves simply as Manobo or by their toponyms such as Matiglundig, meaning from Lundig, Matigkapugi, from Kapugi, or Matigmisulong, from Misulong. Historically, the word ata was a derogatory term used by the Spaniards before to refer to all people living in upland areas, regardless of their culture or linguistic differences. It is not even in the Atamanobo vocabulary, thus it is meaningless to them. The Atamanobo language is identified as a subgroup under the Manobo group of languages. And those are the Ata Manobo. Now, let's proceed to Ata Manobo customs, traditions, and culture. One of the Ata Manobo customs is that when it comes to marriage, they are allowed to polygamy, a practices where a man is being married to multiple women. However, it is just depends to the husband's capacity to afford the bride price, which they called the gasto. Moreover, in terms of um, taking or taking of another wife, the approval of the first wife is considered. It means she has the right to choose on who will be the next or this will be the second wife. Now, there are several types of courtship or betrothal or engagement among Atamanobo. First is what they call the tinuyo, which means done on purpose. It is a type of marriage that is pre-arranged through pamaloy, meaning formal arrangement by parents or elder siblings. Second, they called it bugkot, the kind of marriage arranged when a father wants a couple neighbor to be the parents-in-law of his son. Third, the bulansong. It is when the third party secretively finds out the girl's bride price or the interested groom or for the interested groom, where the groom bypasses the formal arrangement called pamaloy. The groom can ask immediately the girl's hand for marriage, and yeah, that's how it works. Now let's proceed to number 4. The fourth one is the lokoban, which means to shut off. It is when the boy forced to marry a girl where the parents of the girl have set their sights on him as a son-in-law, where they will prevent the boy to live through giving to him a death threat unless he will agree to marry the girl or their daughter. Fifth, the pinuuan, which means to sit down. It is may also considered as a forced marriage when a boy has touched a girl, either it is intentionally or accidentally. For instance, some gestures like borrowing the girl's comb, the touching the fingertips of a girl and touching her shoulder blades. Yeah, that's how it works. Then marriage will proceed. Lastly, the they called it the tinangay. Tinangag. Sorry, it's tinangag rather, which means to carry something without permission. It is a type of forced marriage where the man stealing the girls for a wife. Moreover, it is accepted to their culture since it is done through the encouragement of the boy's family. It is also signifies that the family of the boy can also able to pay any bride price of the girl's family demands. And those are the several types of courtship or and engagement among the Ata Manobo. Now let's find out more. So as you can see at the picture, that was the image as an example of the Ata Manobo wedding in Davao. Now let's proceed to their other customs, and that was Ata Manobo burying their dead, well, their those corpse. Okay, customs of Atamanobo in burying their dead. One of Atamanobo reason for this custom or burying dead is that the busaw or the blood spirit cannot see the corpse and devour it. However, they also had a tradition of leaving the corpse unburied if that people wish to be reminded by the other people, either it's because they want um they want to remember the that people or that people positive qualities and noble deeds. And if the body is left unburied, they placed inside in bonobo or coffin made of lower half of a hollow trunk of an almasiga tree, with the upper half serving as a cover. And of course, to prevent the smell of decomposition, the Atamanobo used the latex or the bayog or kabalikod tree or the scrape bark of the lungay tree and its resin. The coffin would then be hung horizontally on four crossed branches of the tree, and a roof made of leaves of the trees or plants is set up to protect the coffin from any elements. And yeah, immediately after the person's death, there are some cases that the body may be placed in a coffin and left in an abandoned hut far from the neighborhood. And yeah, that was their custom when it comes on burying their dead. Now, let's proceed to Atamanobo community and indigenous houses. So the Atamanobo originally lived in only in a small communities of two or three families. The traditional Talaingod community structure was called the Ogpa Anan or Ingod. These communities were kept small so that the members could move fast to escape raiding forces. Now, let's proceed to the Atamanobo houses. Atamanobo families built their huts high above the ground, and the reason for that is it is for them to protect themselves, of course, from enemies. Their stairways, you know that their stairways or ladder is made of uh, pieces of rope that were um, twined to serve so that they can raise up it at night so no one could climb up. However, in later years, their huts were built lower, where walls are made of barks of trees or dried palm fronds, while the floor of split bamboo strips, and the post of their wood or bamboo, the post of wood or bamboo, bound with rattan strips. Now, that was an example, as you can see at the presentation, that was an example of Manobo indigenous house, as what I was explaining earlier, and what I was describing earlier. Now, let's proceed to Ata Manobo clothing and tribal attire. So, as you can see at the image, that was the attire of a typical Ata Manobo woman, consists of the ompak, the red short blouses with stripe patterns, so as you can see, patadyong for a skirt, and occasionally a malong, a palakot, which is the red cloth belt, and a single strand of multicolored bead necklace. So the umpak is sewn with bias tapes of different colors, usually white, yellow, and red, and it is arranged into squares with minimal use of sequins or beads. So look how colorful their um their cultural attire. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Now, let's proceed to Atamanobo religious beliefs and practices. What are those religious beliefs and practices of Atamanobo? So there is what they called the Pangayaw. Pangayaw is Atamanobo's traditional way of settling conflicts, which may be carried on between individuals, families, or communities when there is a heavy or serious violation done, such as murder, dishonor, or violation of an agreement. So, pangaway may typically occur in four ways. So what are the four ways? The first one is the panaloso. It happened when there is a man who killed another person, but only accidentally because of out of anger or grief. This kind of conflict needed it takes a long time to settle. The second one is the pamalo. When one community wages pangayaw against another because the former suspects the latter of conspiring to harm them, notice of an impending pangayaw is sent to the Igbuhag, Nudatu, and the members of the suspected community through a kuro or calendar. A strand of knot rattan tied with a red piece of cloth. The knots indicate the number of days that the targeted individual or community has to prepare for the pangayaw, and that is the pamalo. Then let's proceed to the third way, which is the amara, where the datus of various communities to settle a conflict through bilo or pangayaw. Then the fourth one is panglibak, when an individual who feels that he was unfairly compensated in a conflict resolved through a mediator wages pangayaw against the person who had failed to give or him or her a fair share. Yeah. And those are the four ways on how the pangayaw rather occurs. Now, Let's proceed to Ata Manobo weaving and handicrafts. So as you can see at the picture, um, that was the talaingod basket or ginoboy made of bagtok and rattan. So there is a process. It is called the pangabel. Yeah, it is a process of weaving fibers such as abaca, hemp, and cotton on the habelan or a backstrap loom. However, nowadays, because of course, cultural erosion, through the years, this traditional weaving, the pangabel, only practices, it disappears and it is only practices by those few older women who are living in remote communities. And yeah, and they still possesses this traditional knowledge of cotton weaving. It's so sad, but yeah, that's the reality. Now let's proceed to the tribal system of the Ata Manobo. Okay, the Atamanobo have three political figures, and those are the Datu, the Bagani, and the Bailan. So each of them has a functions, of course, in their community. The Datu functions as the advisor of the community and is in charge of maintaining peace and order, while the Bagani also maintains the peace but is subservient to the orders of the Datu and the Bailan. However, the Bailan, they serves as the religious leader, the diviner, and the healer in the community. And those are the three key political figures in Ata Manobo, And those are all the things that I will discuss um, to this indigenous people community, one of the indigenous people community in Mindanao, which is the Atamanobo. And I hope that you learned something. And of course, to learn more, uh, let you keep on listening to the next reporter, to one of the other three my other three group mates, because they will also discuss the other three indigenous group in Mindanao, and you will learn a lot of information from it. And that's all for my part. Thank you for listening and attention.
Good day, everyone. Today we'll tackle about the Bagobo tribe, their origin, their beliefs, their languages, and the culture that they have. First, we have the biographical of the Bagobo. The Bagobo are the predominant inhabitants of the vast areas ascending from the west coast of Davao Gulf to the high reaches of Davao, famous significant mountain ranges of Mount Apo or Apo Sandawa to the tribal people. Apo Sandawa happens to the sacred grounds of the Bagobo since time memorial, valued as one of the among the group's richest cultural heritage. So we have a the Bagoba tribe is the indigenous group native from Philippines, especially on the provinces of Davao del Sur and Davao del Norte in Mindanao. So we have a pre-colonial period of this Bagobo tribe. It says that in ancient migration, the Davao, or I mean rather the Bagobo tribe or the Bagobi people are believed to have migrated to Mindanao from islands of Borneo around 200 BCE. On the in Spanish colonialization from 16th to 19th centuries, it says that the Bagobo people had limited contact with Spanish colonizers who focused on converting lowland populations to Christianity. Next one, we have the Bagobo culture and traditions. The Bagobo are the indigenous group of people who live in the mountains of Mindanao, Philippines, like I said earlier. It is They are known for their colorful clothing, metalwork, and ritual dances. The Bagobo plays ritual music with gongs and kolentangs. On the Bagobo language, we have the Tagabawa. Tagabawa is spoken in Cotabato and Davao del Sur provinces and on the slopes of Mount Apo west of Davao City, and the languages is spoken by the Bagobo tribe. So in Tagabawa, it is the number of speakers in this is the approximately it has a 50,000 to 60,000 native speakers. On the language status on this one is considered developing language with efforts to standardize and document it. On the linguistic features of Tagabawa and the Bagobo, it is the both languages have complex grammar system with features like verb, conjunction, noun declension, and sentence structure. Next one, we have the Bagobo culture and the traditions and their traditions. We have the Bagobo supreme spirit and their indigenous Anito religious is called Ispumalak, Manobo, or Manama. The Bagobo perform a rite passage dance called Lawin Lawin, which shows the mountain of the eagle from the egg to adulthood. It says that on the gods of goddesses of Manobo, we have five: Manama, Mangayu, Tuglibon, Diyandi, Makabayan. On the Manama, it is the supreme God, creator of the universe, creator of and the ruler of the ninth heaven. On the Mangayu, it is the god of the forest. It is the god of the forest that forest, animals, and fertility. On the Tuglibon, he is the god of, or rather, the god of the mountains, rocks, and minerals. On the Yanti, it is the goddess of the sea, the river, and fish. On the Bakabayan, it is the god of war, bravery, and strength. The Bagobo have nine heavens, each which has presiding god. These gods are similar to those of Hindu religion but are local invention. They are accessible to man and are worshipped. They mainly exist as mythological beings. So it says that the Gobo have nine heavens. They believe on multi-layered universe, or they believe on the nine heavens. So, and this heavens, it has a presiding God. On the first heaven, the lowest heaven is also called the lowest heaven, inhabited by evil spirits from and the souls of those who live wicked lives. On the second heaven, it's the realm of the ancestors, where the souls of the deceased Bagobo people reside. On the third, it is the domain of the god Mangayu, who rules over the forest and its creature. The fourth heaven is the realm of the god Tuglibon, who controls the mountains and minerals. On the sixth, I guess, oh no, five. The fifth heaven, it is domain of the goddess Diandi, who rules over the sea and its creatures. On the sixth heaven, it is the realm of the god Makabayan. And this one, he governs, who governs war and bravery, bravery rather. On the seventh heaven, it is the domain of the spirits of land, who wants over the Bagobo people and their ancestral lands. And eighth heaven, the realm of spirits of the air, who control the winds and the weather. On the last heaven, or the ninth heaven, it is the highest heaven. It is the highest heaven, inhabited by the supreme god Manama, who created the universe, all the rules over. In conclusion, the Bagubu people believe that the gods and goddesses of the nine heavens influence the lives of humans on the natural world. And also they offer prayers, sacrifices, and rituals to appease these deities and also to maintain balance and harmony in the universe. That's all. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Today I will be discussing to you the indigenous people of Bukidnon. Today we will tackle their characteristics, history and culture, challenges and opportunities. First up, we have their history and culture. Pre-colonial period. There are evidence that they engaged in cultural exchange with other groups. This is maybe their way of socializing or exchanging goods for other goods as well. Next is Spanish colonization. During the Spanish colonization, the Bukidnon people resisted them, leading to conflicts, and maybe they lost a lot of people in the process. Next up, we have their American colonization. The Bukidnon people were introduced to proper education and infrastructure, which greatly impacted their economic status at the time, and they are now literate and civil compared to the past. Next up, we have their characteristics and traditions. So, for characteristics and tradition, first we have their language. The Bukidnon people's language is called Binukid. Then their traditional clothing, they wear dagmay for the men, which is a loincloth. Next is patajong, which is for women, which is a um, tube cloth of some sort, and they just wrap it around their waist. Next is their livelihood. They are primarily, farmers, um, farming root crops, rice, and of course vegetables. Next is spirituality. So they believe in the supreme being called Magbabaya, and they also do some rituals as well. And next, we have their challenges and opportunities. So the first challenge that they face is cultural preservation. So they face challenges in preserving their land, traditions, and customs, which is probably due to the modernization and more people rejecting um, their language and traditions, probably or most likely the younger generation. Next is land rights. So they also face issues, just like others. They also face issues related to land rights because their ancestral lands are often threatened by development projects. So this includes most likely urbanization and mining because um, they live in the mountains. And next we have one of their biggest opportunities, which is economic empowerment. So despite this, they have sustainable agriculture, most likely because their land is big compared to others. That's why they have good agriculture. So that's it. Thank you for listening to my report, and I hope you have a great day.
Good day, everyone. Before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Leo A. Margaro from Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Science. So today, I'm very excited to share with you the rich and fascinating culture of the Tibuli, an indigenous group in the Philippines. The Tibuli people are often referred to as dream weavers because of their intricate craftsmanship and textile making, which they believe is inspired by dreams sent from the spirits. But their culture is much more than just weaving. They have a deeply spiritual way of life. rich traditions, and unique beliefs about the world, nature, and the afterlife. However, the community faces many challenges today, from environmental threats to cultural assimilation. Through this presentation, I hope I give you a deeper understanding to who the Tibuli are and why is it important to preserve their heritage. What makes them particularly interesting is how they integrate art into their daily lives. Their livelihood is not just about survival, but about expressing their connection to the nature and the spirit world. This can be seen in their weaving, music, dances, and even the way they construct their homes. However, their rich traditions, modernization, and external influences pose significant challenges to their culture. Land encroachment, mining, and deforestation have disrupted their way of life, making cultural preservation an urgent issue. The Tiboli are believed to be one of the oldest indigenous group in Mindanao. Descending from Austronesian ancestor, they have historically lived in the mountains regions of South Cotabato, where they developed a distinct identity separate from mainstream Filipino culture. And interestingly, they were once called Tagabili, a given name by the outsiders, which they now reject because it misinterpret their identity. Instead, they prefer to be called Tibuli, a name that reflects their heritage and values. And one of major concern for the Tibuli today is increasing threat to their ancestral land or ancestral domain. Mining and logging activities in Mindanao have significantly impacted their environment, leading to deforestation and displacement of their communities, their way of life, which deeply connected in nature, is at risk without proper protection and they could also lose their cultural heritage. One of their most famous cultural contribution is their weaving tradition, particularly the tinalak fabric. The tinalak is a sacred textile made from abaca fiber, and what makes it special is that its pattern are believed to come from dreams sent by spirits. This means that very tinalak design is unique and cannot be replicated. The weavers, also women's, are called dream weavers because they receive these patterns in their dreams and bring them to life through weaving. And aside from their textile art, their social life revolves around ceremonies and rituals. And one of the most important ceremonies in this minimum, which is associated with marriage. Marriage among the Tibuli is not just personal affair, but a community event. It strengthens the bond within the tribe. Their oral tradition also plays a huge role in preserving their history, as stories and legends are passed down through generation to educate inspire younger members of the community. The Tibuli belief system is rooted in animism, which means they believe that everything in nature, plants, animals, rivers, and even objects, has a spirit. They see themselves as a caretaker of nature, and they perform rituals to honor these spirits. For instance, before they cut down a tree or hunt an animal, they perform a ritual to ask permission from the spirit that resides within. If they fail to do so, they believe that the spirit may become angry and bring misfortune to the individual or the community. This belief system fosters a deep respect for nature, which is why Tibuli live in harmony with their environment for centuries. Unfortunately, modern industries expand into their territory. These sacred traditions are becoming harder to maintain. Many Tibuli communities are now facing deforestation and environmental degradation, which threatens both their spiritual practices and their physical survival. In addition to animism, the Tibuli are polytheistic, meaning they believe in multiple gods. These gods play different roles in their daily lives. For example, Kadaula Sambad is the supreme god, often associated with the sun, while his wife, Bulon La Mugo, represents the moon. They believe that these gods watch over them and influence their fate. Other deities include Mohen, a spirit in the form of a bird that dictates fate, and the Busao, malevolent spirit that cause illness and misfortune. These beliefs influence their rituals and tradition. For instance, when someone is sick, they perform healing rituals that involves offering and prayers to drive away evil spirits. Their polytheistic belief provided them with explanation for natural events, human experiences, and mysteries of life and death. The Tibuli reverence for nature extends to their views in life and the afterlife. They believe that the gods created humans to be physically attractive so they can be drawn to each other and continue the cycle of life. So basically to let humans procreate with each other. One fascinating belief is uh, that the tattoos glow after death, and this status acts as a guiding light for the deceased, helping them find their way to the afterlife. They also believe that once a person crosses into the afterlife, they do not return. This is why burial rituals are important. They assure that the soul has a smooth transition into the next world. The Tibuli do not have a written language, so their culture is preserved through oral tradition. They pass down their history, belief, lessons through storytelling, chants, and music. These oral traditions are not just for entertainment. They serve as a moral lessons for historical records for future generation. So, for example, epic chants to tell stories of their gods and ancestor, teaching the younger generation about their identity and values. In time, when globalization threatens indigenous language, oral tradition remains a vital tool for keeping the Tibuli culture alive. So for additional facts, the Tibuli is also known as Tagabili, Tibuli, Taubili, and Tautulul. Their language is closely related to the to that of Bilaan and Tiruray. Another fascinating aspect of their culture is their belief in dreams. They're inspired weaving based on dreams. Tinalak weavers do not create their own design randomly. They claim that the pattern appears in their dream and they're simply bringing the vision of the spirit to life. This makes Tinalak fabric a spiritual and artistic masterpiece. Additionally, the Tipoli live in traditional houses called uh, Kunubo, which is our raised wooden signatures designed to blend harmoniously with nature. So, to summarize everything that I present, the Tibuli people have a rich cultural identity which deserves recognition and preservation. Their traditional art and belief reflect a deep respect for nature and spirituality. However, modernization and environmental threats put their way of life at risk. By learning about and supporting indigenous cultures like the Tivoli, we can help preserve these values traditions for future generations. So